What's going on? This is To Be Continued With. I'm Mike, your host, and if you're new to the channel and you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. More importantly, hit that bell for notifications so you're notified on the latest and greatest content. But as a huge favor, I need you to support our partner in crime here, Catt the Legend. He supplies all the hot tracks that you hear on each and every episode that we provide, and his info can be found in the description below. You'll see his YouTube channel and his Spotify page. So when you're done here, go vibe out to some really great music. With that being said, let's cue up the intro and get things started with Moon Knight, Episode 4. Episode 4 is titled The Tomb, and it starts off with the imprisoned Khonshu being placed among other Egyptian gods who were also turned into stone statues. From there, we pick up directly from Episode 3's ending, where Layla is trying to wake up Steven since he passed out from rewinding the night sky with the help of Khonshu. Now they're being shot at, but Layla is able to take out the attackers with a road flare and some quick thinking. She ends up also taking their Jeep, throws Steven in, and ends up making their way to the site that Arthur Harrow found with the Scarab during the beginning of last episode. But before they make their way into the ancient ruins, Steven spills the beans to Layla about why Mark left her. And he explains that he wanted to keep her safe from Khonshu since he's looking to have her be his next avatar. Once inside, they do find themselves in a maze with 6 different paths. Steven actually figures out that the maze is in the shape of the Eye of Horus, which is basically a royal symbol that protects in the afterlife. With Layla then figuring out that Ahmed's last avatar was a pharaoh, and as they enter the ruins of the house of the protectors of the tomb, they notice that there's a concrete slab that's covered in blood. They end up continuing to explore the ruins when out of nowhere, they suddenly hear a bunch of gunshots. Now, they then see one of Arthur's cult members get thrown on that concrete slab from an unknown figure. And that figure seems to be one of the protectors of the tomb, and he starts cutting apart the cult member. And as he's doing that, he also spots Steven and Layla. But Layla, with her quick thinking, is able to create a diversion. But the undead protector now goes after her instead of Steven, who was his original target. He now captures her in one of the caverns, but she's able to fight him off with another flare that she had, only to see and notice that Arthur is also watching all this go down from one of the caverns in the ruins. At this point, Steven, who is separated from Layla and has continued through the ruins, finds the long-lost tomb of Alexander the Great. We end up cutting back to Arthur and Layla, and he's about to tell her about her father and about Mark. He tells her that her father used to call her his little scarab, and when he went to judge Mark with a scale tattoo, he was unable to read his soul. Meanwhile, at this point, Mark and Steven are now able to communicate with each other without the need of a reflective surface, and Mark instructs Steven to open the tomb of Alexander the Great before Arthur shows up and does so himself. And Steven does this and figures out that Alexander the Great was the avatar of Ahmed, which basically means he was also his voice. So he rips open the bandages on the mummy's face and locates the statue prison of Ahmed within the throat of Alexander's mummified corpse. At this point, Arthur explains to Layla the situation of how her father was killed by a bunch of mercenaries along with Mark's involvement. He's basically implying that Mark was one of the mercenaries that took him out. She asks him if he's done and simply walks away with tears in her eyes. Layla ends up finding Steven and asks him straight out, "Can he hear me?" Now, meaning Mark. Steven jokingly thinks that she's asking about Alexander the Great, but she stares him in the eyes and asks, "What happened to my father?" It's at this point that Mark takes over the body and tells her, "We have to go." She ends up stopping them and confronts him again and says that he killed her father, and he replies by saying, "I didn't do that, but I was there." Now, with Mark admitting that he was there, he also tells Layla that his partner got greedy and killed everyone, including himself, and that he should have died that night, but he didn't. It's at this moment that Arthur and his followers show up, and Arthur shoots Mark in the chest. Not once, but twice. Mark then falls into a little water creek, and we end up going into a cheesy Indiana Jones knockoff show where the main character is actually named Dr. Stephen Grant. Now the show pans out and we see that it's playing on a TV in a psychiatric ward, played by characters that we've seen before, but this time they're inmates in this place. We see our Golden Street mime, Donna, along with others like Arthur's followers who were pretending to be cops, that lady that made the fake passport for Layla, and Layla herself. Hell, we even see Gus the Goldfish in there. Now Arthur being the head doctor in this facility, and Mark, basically being in some sort of weird purgatory, notices things that reflect what he's recently been going through. Now during his one-on-one session with Arthur, he ends up snapping out of it and makes a run for it. And now things start to get even weirder because he hides in a room and he ends up seeing a sarcophagus. He opens it up and Steven ends up jumping out of it and they both hug but wonder what the hell is going on. Yes folks, there are two Oscar Isaacs trying to get out of this crazy situation when oddly enough, they end up running past another room that has another sarcophagus in it, and it seems to have someone inside of it. But they leave it be and continue to try to find a way out of this crazy place. They both approach a door, and when it opens, they are greeted by an Egyptian hippo goddess that simply says, "Hi," and completely freaks them out. The episode ends right then and there, and with only 2 episodes left, we are left on the edge of our seats because things have now gone from being intense and weird to straight up crazy. Now, a couple of things that stood out to me in this particular episode, which I'm sure will play out in the next 2 to come, is that Mark and Steven can now communicate with each other without the need to see a reflection. Also, the fact that the psych ward is simply previous locations and places that have been seen in this show, but are simply painted in all white now. Just like Arthur Harrow's office, which is basically the loft where Mark first changed into Mr. Knight when he was being chased by that jackal. And that everyone in this ward has been a figure that has crossed paths with our main characters. But the fact that we haven't seen Mark's third personality from the comics, and that there are times where Mark and Steven have no idea who did what, leads me to believe that Jake Lockley is possibly in that sarcophagus that was not open and skipped by Mark and Steve. The interesting thing is that in this episode is Taweret, the hippo goddess at the end, who just so happens to be the goddess of fertility and childbirth. Now, I don't know how she plays into all this, but I would assume that she will probably take Mark on a journey to see his past, since there will be an appearance of Mark's parents somewhere in the next 2 episodes. Now, with this episode coming to an end and the series having only 2 more episodes left, I can confidently say that this isn't the end, but it's simply to be continued with.